Well, good morning. It's the 22nd of March, Sunday, sunny day in Oregon. And I decided to come back to the Sandy River Park, Delta Park, and go see the bird blind Confluence project, which I drove past yesterday. I was so excited to get to the Hood River, and I completely forgot it. So in about 45 miles back out of my way, come down here. So now I'm about ready to hit the trail. I paid my $5, bought my pass on the internet, of course. So here we go. Here's the parking lot.
What up?
People coming in here. Very crowded. Took me, gotta drive around the parking lot 5 or 6 times to find a spot. Here's the trail. I think it's about 1.5 miles out here. I will not show you the entire thing, just the highlights. It says here, Meadow Trail Bird Blind 1.7 miles. And that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, here we go. Still going. I don't know what kind of trees these are. They don't have their leaves. Kind of cool looking like this. A lot of people out here with their dogs walking. Here's a look at the river delta. There's some people with their dogs. You're supposed to be observing the wildlife here. Look at these giant monsters I found. These are some big old animals eating electricity. I don't see many birds. The most prevalent animals around here are dogs and humans, Homo sapiens. As you can see, here's the board describing what this area is all about. It was the confluence of the Sandy and Columbia rivers. Those are traditional hunting, fishing, and gathering grounds for the native people of the region. The Cascades, the Multnomah, Clackamas, and other indigenous groups lived and fished here. They spoke mostly Chinookian dialects and shared a common trade language, Chinook Wawa. In 1805, Lewis and Clark called this the Quicksand River because of the volcanic ash from Mount Hood that still lies just beneath the surface. It's interesting that I feel compelled to see this entire project. These are kind of tourist things I said I wasn't interested in. Be a sheep and go put museums and sites all around the world on some bucket list and check them off. But for some reason, I drove 45 miles, actually going to be 90 miles out of my way just to come back here. So something's making me do this, not quite sure what. Just a project I had in mind. My main point of coming this way was to drive along the Columbia River, the route that Astor's Party and Lewis and Clark, mainly after reading that book, the story got me interested in this area. And then I found out that Maya Lynn had done that project, her and other people, and I put it on my list. And funny how we humans make plans and then want to fulfill them. This is a part of human nature, which I'm trying to resist. But here I am, nevertheless. End of philosophy. Well, this might be a bridge to the bird blind. Oh, it is the bird blind. I see it now. Yay! And the bird blind is made out of, I'll go back and read the sign, some black wood, indigenous invasive species that grows around here. And inscribed on those slats are 120 bird species that Lewis and Clark noted in their journal. They said there were so many birds here that they kept them up at night. I hardly hear a single bird now. So what's that lesson all about? I guess the lesson is that we're wiping out a lot of birds. Wow. All right, here's the explanation. On the bottom row is a date. Then you have Lewis and Clark's name, common name, scientific name, and status. Here's me inside the blind. Yee! Walking down to the banks of the river. Get a look at that. Just beyond the bird blind. So, I guess it's sandy river, and apparently they're going to change the waterway here and let it go back to its natural state. I don't know if you can see it, but in the center of the screen are some ducks in the water. A couple white ones. I guess those are the males, and maybe all males. So one thing I've been thinking about, I guess that's the point of visiting sites like this, art, cultural sites, is to make you think about not only animals and the changing environment, but the human species as well. And after reading the book on John Astor and his group, and thinking about Lewis and Clark and their adventure, makes me think a lot about how the stories and history that we learned is not so simple. You know, the story about between the Indian and American, or Indian European white man story is not as simple as Indians here first. White man comes up and wipes them all out. That didn't happen exactly like that. Obviously, the Indians or Asian tribes that came over the Bering Strait discovered this land first inhabitants. And then the Europeans came over. And in some spots anyway, you know, at least around here, they coexisted together, traded. I think the Indians enjoyed the trade that the Europeans and Canadians brought them, and vice versa. Traded goods, stories. There's intermarriage. So I mean, it was working for a while. It wasn't just wiping out everybody here. So I think the story is that human beings compete for land and resources. And if it wasn't the European coming here first and wiping out the Indians, maybe the Indians themselves would have started competing for land. I'm sure they did. And some tribes overtook other tribes' land, fought, warred. They weren't all peaceful. But eventually, if it wasn't the Europeans, it might have been some other group came to the Americas, and whatever they would have called it then, and there would have been competition for land. Unfortunately, humans don't leave people alone. Don't respect, peoples who are in an area first. That's not what happens. What happens is a dominant tribe, if there is a dominant tribe, or someone who wants more, competes with the indigenous species, whether it's animals or humans, whether it's we're all animals, but you know what I mean, whether it's Homo sapiens or other animals. There's competition is like it or not, is a way of life. So the story is a bit more nuanced than just white man wipes out Indian. So that's what I've been thinking about. Those are some of my thoughts. We can talk about that at one of our virtual get-togethers.